Welcome back to the Pure Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Van Blaircom. We have another incredible episode for you today, but before we get started, if you or somebody you know might benefit from today's message, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Your support helps us reach more people. On today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Janis E. I listened to her speak at an event a few weeks back in New Richmond, and I knew from that moment that I was going to connect with her and ask her to come on. And I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to meet her and get to know her a little bit more. She's overcome so much in her life, and just to be able to show up today, support other people in the way that she does, it's pretty inspiring. I don't want to tell too much of her story, so without further ado, here's Janis E. Well, I appreciate you making the drive. You live in Centuria?
Yep.
Okay, so kind of a hike.
I kind of go all over though for like meetings and
Sure.
events and stuff like that.
Whole
And
county's super spread out.
Yeah.
I guess all these counties are, but yeah. So, a little bit of backstory. So I went to the New Richmond Club 2 weeks ago and saw you speak.
Yeah.
And you were just like super engaging, and I was like, oh, I got to reach out to her and ask her to come on and just share your experience. Obviously, you do a lot in the community.
Yep.
Support a lot of women, but I think just your insight was really, I don't know, it was pretty cool to listen to. You know, just everything you've overcome, and so, you know, I think maybe we can start there.
Yeah. No, I definitely appreciate hearing that though because that's what my goal is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think, like you said, it's one thing to go in and listen to an hour or 2 hour long drunk log, but to hear kind of, I don't know, the truth about alcoholism and addiction, it's like,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and that's where I was at. Like, I like to hear like the what happened and like how people overcame their things and what it's like now. Because you can go to meetings and stuff like that or events and you can see like these people are really down on themselves and still like in a depressed state. And I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear why life is good because life is not always good. And I kind of feel like when I spoke in New Richmond, I left it on that. It's like my life is always good. Trust me, my life is not always good.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, we have kids.
Yeah.
And my kids are not perfect. So like that's why I appreciate listening to people who have the message.
Yeah.
And not just like I used to do a lot of drugs or I went to jail and
Right.
oh, life is good because I did the steps. See ya, It's like, all right.
When you think about recovery today, what word or phrase comes to mind?
So I thought about this, and I thought about it, and I was like, okay, so I know how I want to say it. So I looked up, and I saw dynamic. Mm-hmm. And the reason I picked dynamic, so dynamic is an adjective, and it can describe a person as a positive in attitude or full of energy and new ideas. Mm-hmm. And so that's like recovery, right?
Yep.
And then also as an adjective of a process, it's characterized by constant change, activity, or progress. So when I looked that up on my phone, this is what it said. Recovery is dynamic means it is a nonlinear, ongoing, and personalized journey with ups and downs and not a fixed destination. And for me, that describes my life. Yeah. And I love that. And so I looked that up, and then also I couldn't just do one phrase or one word. I had to do one more, and it was limitless. And limitless as an adjective is without end, limit, or boundary. Because if we're willing to put in the work, that's the key. Right. It's limitless. We have no limit on how far we can go in our recovery or the things that we can accomplish and do. And the only limits on recovery is inside oneself. And I truly do believe that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, definitely true for me. I put a lot of it, not to get like too God,
Yeah, no.
But like, I catch myself putting God in a box a little bit in my life, and so it's just kind of cool to hear that. You want to give us a little, so what did life look like before recovery?
Okay, so earlier life for me was very, very chaotic with mental illness. It runs in my family, and also alcoholism. I'm a fourth generation, from what I can trace back, without doing a ton of more research, I'm fourth generation on both sides of my family for alcoholism and drug addiction. My family has been very toxic and not cohesive as I grew up. My mother was, she had mental illness, bipolar, and she was always on medications. And then also she was a single mom. So my dad left when we were young, and he was like the every other weekend dad. Okay. He was in the service too, so he would come home and take us on like trips once in the summer.
Sure.
For like 2 weeks and try to make up, I think, for that last time. But he really, Yeah, so he really just was every other weekend dad. So when you see that, that's truly my life. He did pay child support and all that stuff. So my mom, we lived okay. She always worked in a factory.
Okay.
She wasn't educated, but she always showed up to work. And I think that's where my work ethic came from.
Sure.
Is even though we lived in a kind of chaotic environment with the mental illness and stuff, she always was a worker. I had close family on my mom's side and my dad's side, but my mom, she had this alcoholism and it started flaring, I would say probably around kindergarten for me.
Okay.
And every year she would go into these really bad, like it was bipolar, so she would go into these stints of these really deep low lows when there was trying to commit suicide or just getting the alcoholism. She would actually drove herself to treatment when I was an early memory when I was in 6th grade. She brought me to band practice in the morning to like our band camp for the summer or whatever, and she left me there and she drove herself to treatment. And 8 hours after she had her last drink, she was still at a .40.
Wow.
And she was about 5'4", about 120 pounds when I was a small lady.
Yeah.
And so just for having that memory, and it's my brother and I, we kind of have like a joke about it. Like, yeah, nobody knows our story unless you had a mom that, blew up blood alcohol content at .40, and drove herself to treatment at that time. She drove herself to Riverside. So that was just one of the examples, like I grew up in that, Not saying my mom was absent. My mom was a loving person, but I think because of her mental illness, she didn't have the capabilities of being a mother.
Yeah.
And it is really sad. I miss my mom deeply. She's been passed away. She actually passed away while I was incarcerated. And so it's a really sad deal. And the last words I said to my mom was, I finally learned how to drink. And so for her to hear those words from me, I can't even imagine how scared she was, because she was my first introduction into what AA was kind of. And I went to Alateen in Forest Lake when I was a kid. And so my dad was sober my entire adolescent life. However, he had his own battles.
Sure.
He was in the military, and so on the surface, everything was perfect, But deep down inside, in our family home, my dad was growing weed, and then he was sober, but he was letting us drink. So by the time I was 14, I was getting cigarettes and booze from my mom, and I was getting weed and booze from my dad, And I remember my dad was the first person who lit my little tin pop can, with weed in it. And so just having those memories is like when somebody as close, like a parent in that position, gives you the okay to do drugs like that, whether it's, I say drugs, and when I say drugs, I'm like, oh, drugs are bad, like meth and stuff. But no, weed is drugs. Like alcohol is drugs, that's substance. It alters your mental state. And when you're 14 years old, you're still growing, your brain's still growing, and you're still trying to soak up all that time. And I'm still trying to strive for the attention from my mom and strive for the attention from my dad and the acceptance and the love. So when they're telling me that these things are okay, then that's a whole new perspective on life, right?
That was something I really resonated when you shared that. I was like, God, that was my experience too, and it's right. I had a very similar experience growing up, and just seeing kind of getting that okay, them making it okay. It sets kind of the trajectory in your life, So, anyway, sorry.
But yeah, no, so that's why I try to tell people about that. It's not to bash my parents. My parents were loving people to the extent that they knew. There's a lot of learned behaviors when as you come down, and the mental illness too, and that's real.
And it was generational.
Right? Yep. And my grandpa, he's got 49 years of sobriety, but before he reached that sobriety, it was not pretty in their household. Yeah. And my grandma too. My dad grew up in a very bad environment. So I ended up doing drugs and drinking all the way through high school.
Did you find that grace in your recovery, or were you always kind of in that place with your parents?
No, I didn't. I hated my parents. I really did. I didn't want anything with my dad. I still am not really. I would tell people I miss my mom a lot. I don't really miss my dad, because there was a lot of those things that happened behind closed doors that I still won't talk about in public.
Sure.
But there was things that happened, and I was very unhappy with my dad's family for a long time too, because I feel like they knew something was going on, but they didn't come in and help me or fix it or save us. I wanted to be saved. So just coming from that, my younger brother, bless his heart, he's got PTSD, he's a mental illness veteran that's homeless because he can't put two and two together to fix his life. But I think because he got abandoned by my mom, and then he got abandoned by my dad, And then he went to the service, and then he came back, and he just, everything flared for him with his substance abuse and stuff like that. I love him to death, but I can't save him either. And I wish somebody would save us. But that's why I came to the point when I got into the program, after a failed marriage, after abandoning my children for doing drugs and drinking, I was a young mom because I wanted that attention. So as soon as a male gave me attention, and I got pregnant right away, when I was 19, and I married him, and he was 10 years older than me. And it was like I was just searching for that love from somebody, like a father figure, and that's where I went with it. So it was a long time until I actually appreciated my mom. Now that I've been a single mom of 2 kids, I started looking back, and I'm like, man, I really miss her a lot because I think that we could have did the recovery thing together. And then is that part of my codependency, though, too? You know what I mean? Is like, let me save you, Mom. No, the turning point, definitely when I was in jail when my mom passed away, and just having that unmanageability and instability in my whole life.
Yep.
And then ended up in jail, after.
You hadn't, really, had you gone to jail?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
A lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was like my 3rd time in this jail just for this warrant.
Oh, sure, okay.
Yeah, because I just never showed up because I didn't have so you're homeless, like, where do you send your mail?
Right, so you didn't know.
I don't know. You know what I mean? And then also, so I had been in jail, I got caught stealing at the Fleet Farm in Cambridge, so I Sandy County Jail, and I got caught with weed at the same time. And then I learned that you're not supposed to steal from Fleet Farm because they have really good asset protection.
Yep.
And also that you shouldn't have drugs on you when you're stealing because it's another charge because they always search you. So anyway, so I've been in Sandy County trouble, I've been in Ramsey County Jail, and then in Anoka County Jail multiple times.
So you made your little rounds.
The thing about Anoka County Jail is my whole family lives in Anoka County, and my uncle was a cop at the time. So every time they'd bring me in, they'd be like, hey, I got Carlson's niece in the backseat. My uncle didn't think that was very flattering, especially when when my mom died, he was the one that actually had to call the jail. And so I had been in jail for, about a week at the time, and I had been going to the programs in the jail and doing the AA meetings and the self-help groups. And when I would go to these groups, they would just be like, the girls would be like, oh, I can't wait to get out, I just want to go use, and they would just glorify their drug use. And at this time, I was down, I was beaten, I was broken. It was June of 2016. I knew I wanted to change, but I didn't know how to make that change. I'd been on a binge for the last about year and a half, hardcore. My life was definitely unmanageable.
Yeah.
And I knew from the moment that I had first used drugs and drank that I didn't want to stop doing it, so I knew I had an issue. I didn't know what that issue was. And then when I started going to the AA meetings in the jail, it was like, okay, so I know I have a problem. And that was my turning point where I knew that I wanted to be better. I didn't know how to do it. Yeah. So when my mom died, it was my free pass out of jail. So they settled my case within a couple days, and they said you have to do, some community service, pay this fine, and do an AODA assessment. And I'm like, that's fine. I want to do an AODA because I want to go into treatment. Well, when I got out, I was just going to go hard for a few days because I was going to go to treatment. So I went hard for a few days, and then I ended up in the psych ward. And when I was in the psych ward, it was in the 5th floor United. I slept for several days, and then when they came in to do the assessment, they had said something, and I don't know if I said something wrong, but it came down to they wouldn't do a Rule 25 or whatever that's called because I was technically not a Minnesota resident, but I was a homeless. And so I didn't get that. So I got out thinking I'm going to treatment, and they let me go, and I didn't know what to do. Yeah. So for the next few months, I just kept hooking up with different groups of people and staying in the casinos and running around in there and learning just more addict behaviors, And so finally a breaking point came where my ex-husband had been charged with a drug sale that happened when I had came home at one of the times to see my kids. I had brought some with me, and I gave him some to sell to somebody else, and that person had bought it for the cops, and so he got in trouble, and he called, and he texted me. Actually, he emailed me because we weren't on texting basis. He had me blocked on everything at the time, and he emailed me. He said, I'm going to prison. I need you to come home and take care of your kids. And I said, come get me. And there had been multiple times where he said, I'm going to come get you, I'm on my way. And then he really wasn't. He was still angry with me, and I understand. I had hurt him. I was a terrible wife. I didn't learn relationships growing up. I learned to use sex and money and drugs and not to be a wife and a mother. So I understand why I had hurt him so much. And so he ended up coming and picking me up. And I was home, and I was finally home. My son was not happy to see me. He was very upset. My daughter was happy. She still hadn't been hurt. They were 7 and 10 at the time. And she hadn't seen all the ick. She just knew Mommy was in and out. And Alex, he was 10. He, like a sponge, picked up everything that his dad had said. He spent a lot of time with his grandparents, so I hurt them tremendously too. Yeah. And so it was just it wasn't good, you know? And I was home for 10 days, and I was off of meth, and I thought, this is it, I can drink, you know? So I ended up talking to my ex-husband and getting me a bottle of alcohol and some vodka, actually, and I said I just needed it for this toothache. I'm just gonna take a little capful, and that's all I was gonna drink. So that night, it was October 28th of 2016, I drank the whole bottle. I caused a scene with my ex-husband. I ended up in jail that night for a warrant that I still had out of Anoka County because I ended up running into law enforcement and they ran my name and I had this warrant, so they brought me to jail, and then I woke up in jail the next day and ended up with more charges because of my behavior the night before. And it was not, so that was it. When I woke up in jail, after I had gotten drunk and made a mess, I was at a .20 and I got to jail and I was just inebriated and I knew that I had done bad things. You know, I had made a scene, and the thing that I knew that was the worst is I was drunk in front of my kids again. I was using substances again in front of my kids who I had promised for the last 10 days, Mommy's gonna get better, she's not going anywhere, she's here to stay, and here now I'm in jail again. So yeah, so that was it. That was like, man, I have got to make a change, but am I gonna have a life when I get out of here to make that change? Right. Is my life over? Have I ruined everything? Right. You know, so all I knew is I was in jail and I had to make the best of it. So I got up and I had been hearing, you know, people have these stories of these God things that happened to them. Yeah. I was not religious growing up. I didn't really know God. My family went to Catholic church, so when I would visit them, I would love to go to Catholic church with them and just see it because it was like all cool for me. Yeah. Yeah. And that was very, you know, random as a child. And so I had opened this Bible. It was a recovery Bible somebody gave me, and it opened up to Proverbs 20 verse 1, and it was, drinking makes you foolish. It said it right there. And that was, I believe, verbatim, those are what it says. And I was like, wow, like this is wild. So
that is wild.
That's when I opened my eyes and I was like, wow, something has got to change. Drinking is horrible. I've known, you know, I had made so many drunken mistakes throughout my entire 20s. Yeah. You know, we would go on camping trips. Mom would get drunk and wreck everything. You know, we went on fishing trips with my family. They quit inviting me because Mom gets drunk and takes off with random people and does random things. And that's what I did. I would just get drunk because every time I set out, I never had one drink. It was always another one, and I was up all night partying, taking off, doing things nobody knew where I was at, fighting. You know, I was not a pleasant drunk ever. And so I knew that I shouldn't drink. So the fact that I was in there again, it was just heartbreaking to me. And that was the time where I said, this is enough, you know.
So, I guess enter here recovery.
Yeah, so that was,
maybe we should. So how long have you been in recovery for?
So my last drink was on October 28th of 2016. So my sober date is October 29th of 2016. So I have 9 years and a few months. Wow, yep. That's incredible. Since I've had drink or drugs. Yep.
And so I think if I remember correctly, you had kind of told a little story about going down to the AA club, even though it was closed, and you like were instrumental in getting it moved. Can you kind of talk about like those early days?
Yeah.
And like what, you know, because I think that's important. I mean, there's kind of for a lot of people. Well, you didn't go to treatment.
No, I didn't. I just needed 30 days in Polk County Jail. That's all I needed.
And then you.
Yep.
But then you jumped right into AA.
Yeah, so I got out. So when I was in there, we had the AA and stuff like that, and 2 weeks out of the 4. So I tell people, if you ever want to do some service commitment, go to the jails and do the AA meetings there because they need women. Yeah. We need women. We need to stick together as women. We need to help each other out because there's not enough of us that are willing to do the things. Yeah. And so I got out of jail, and my ex-husband he needs a mom for his kids, right? So he's still not sober. He's still has a substance abuse issue, but his lawyer is telling him you need to go to AA and do these things. So him and I, so he let me come back to the house and he let me stay there. And he said, you got to go to AA though. You have to. And I said, I will. So we've started going to meetings. So I got out on Monday. On Tuesday, we tried to go to this Wolf Creek meeting at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday or something. And it had been closed. So Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., I walked into the St. Croix Falls Alano Club for their AA meeting. And so I didn't tell them it was my first meeting.
Yeah.
And after I had been around for a while, I see what they did to people at their first meeting, so I'm kind of glad that I didn't tell them it was my first meeting. But we went through, I believe it was a gratitude meeting.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they gave me a 30-day medallion. And they said, you earned this. If this dissolves in your mouth, you can drink again. And I thought that was the funniest thing. I have tried putting it in my mouth. It does not dissolve. But so about a week, so every day we went to meetings. And we are lucky to have such good recovery in our area.
Yeah.
And even the people, if I didn't have a car, my ex-husband would bring me places, and then I would start getting the phone list.
Yeah.
And as hard as it is for people early in recovery, I have to tell everybody this, you are not a burden.
Yeah.
You are not a burden. Like, you need to use that phone list and call people because they are willing to come get you. They're just waiting, to come get you. They're waiting for that 12-step work when they walk into meetings to help people out. So about a week in, they had announced at the St. Croix Falls Alano Club that they were going to close the club for a week to do the floors. And my ex-husband's basically like, my wife needs this. Like, you cannot shut the doors. You have to have them.
Yeah.
So he drives down to the library. He says, you know what, my tax dollars pay for that new library and the new public room and all that. And he said, get out and go ask him if we're going to go see if we can rent the room for the week for the AA meetings.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. He's like, yep. So he pulled up to the curb at the library and he's like, go ask.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my goodness. So I get out and I go in, and so I had already made the front page of the paper, right?
Yeah.
When I did my last incident. So I'm not really like into going into public a whole lot right now. So I go into the library and I was like, hey, so I'm wondering if we could rent the room for the AA meeting. And they're like, oh yeah, we could do that. We take a deposit for the key. And I'm just like, okay, well, I don't know how that's going to work and stuff like that. So the next day we go back to a meeting. And my ex-husband says, Janice found a room, we're going to go to the library. We can have meetings there all week. And some of the old timers were kind of like, I don't know about that. And then this one guy, he's like, we'll do it. We can do it. And I said, well, they need a deposit for the key. And then that was kind of like the thing because, AA meetings don't really have money, but the Alano Society does. And my ex-husband said, I'll just write a check. We'll give them a check and it'll be fine. So we just wrote a check and let them hold the check for the deposit for the key. So for that week, I had still been looking for a job because I'm still pretty fresh out of jail, and I'm still trying to find a job and going through all the temp agencies and things. I still have this warrant from Minnesota, which ended up not being like extraditable. It was in-state pickup, so I carried that for quite a while. But just trying to find a job with my background. I didn't have serious charges. I wasn't a felon. Well, I had the felony pending, but wasn't a convicted felon yet.
Yeah.
I didn't. The worst charge was happens to be the battery charge, and then I have a possession of needles charge too at the time. So getting a job wasn't the easiest, and so I finally had found a job about halfway through the week of the meeting. So I'm going to the library for every single meeting, and there was 3 on Saturday, and then like 2 on Wednesday, and so I'm there for each one of those meetings. Open up the library, the door for it. And even one of the old timers, he's like, I can't believe that you're new in recovery. I swear I thought you had a few years on you.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this is how badly I needed it. When I showed up, and I would get rides from people, and I would ask people for things because when I walked into those rooms, it was love.
Yeah.
And I know people, it's kind of cliche. It's like, oh, you're telling my story, but that's the truth. Is because they were saying things that I did. And they are come back and they're happy and they have these lives that are successful and they have these nice cars. And they were just telling me, like, you keep coming back.
Yeah.
And they would say things like, if you want what we have, you have to do what we did. And so that's what really kept me coming back, because I knew I was at the bottom. For me, I had no choice. I did not want to keep disappointing my children again. And I didn't want to keep being homeless again. I did have a good work ethic, for my parents worked. And so growing up, I never really thought it was an option to have a job. So even when I was using, I would go and get jobs, but then I could never make it to my first day, or I could never make it to my second day. So I knew that I always had to have a job, though. So I did end up getting a job, and we ended up finishing the meetings at the library. And so that was my biggest first service commitment.
Yeah.
But then I always did the little things, like take the topic, because then I knew I had to be there.
Yeah.
And even if I had to get rides, I knew I had to be there.
It's good stuff. I was gonna say, like, what the 12-step program gave you early on. I mean, you mentioned a whole handful of things. maybe you could talk a little bit about how sponsorship, meetings, and fellowship kind of shaped your healing, because you do sponsor quite a few people today.
Yeah, I do. One thing I want to add to the meetings too is I had kids, and they came with me
Oh, wow, yeah.
to the meetings. My kids grew up in AA. We did the events when I was early sober. We did all the events, the New Year's parties, the Christmas parties, Thanksgiving parties, Easters. We did all the stuff, so there's all that stuff, and people have kids. You can bring your kids.
Yeah.
They can sit in a different room. My kids didn't have tablets.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got tablets. They can sit on and do that type of stuff.
Yeah.
My kids would come and sit on a book, or I would just give them headphones and they would just sit there. So my kids grew up in AA, and they grew up with these people that loved them too.
Yeah.
And I think that was really important too. So having kids is not really an excuse. I mean, you just have to make sure that they're not like, distracting, right?
Right.
And then there's meetings that have childcare.
I was gonna say, I feel like there are a lot of clubs now that are super welcoming. Like, I've been to the New Richmond Club, and it seems like everybody's,
They got a whole room.
yeah, there's a whole room,
Yeah.
kids' toys. I know in River Falls, they have a room downstairs. A lot of the meetings are starting to offer childcare, so you're absolutely right. That shouldn't be a barrier.
Yeah.
Or an excuse.
Right. Excuse, right? Yeah. So early 12-step programs, they really gave me a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
It took a couple years before I could sponsor women. And so initially when I jumped in, the Butterfly House is really close to St. Croix, so I started talking to the women in there. I knew some of the women in there, from using and stuff like that. So, and I eventually would get a car. So I was 6 months sober. My ex-husband's parents gave me one of their cars, and they were going to let me buy it from them. They ended up giving it to me. So I could take their grandchildren places and stuff too.
That relationship changed.
Yeah.
Because that's a far cry from where it was.
That is way different, yeah.
Earlier on, you had mentioned how
No, I would be at the house on random like Mother's Day and stuff like that, and they would get there, and my ex-husband would be like, you have to hide. Like, they cannot see you here. They're going to yell at me for you being here. Because, I hurt them, and I hurt their child, and the biggest hurt that I instilled was in their grandchildren, who they love endlessly and unconditionally, and they don't want to see them hurt, so I get it.
Yeah.
I have hurt them, and I met them when I was 18. So I grew up, essentially they became my parents, who I never had, because they were structured, and they worked, and they did all the things.
Yeah.
So I really did hurt them a lot, in my using. So for them to be so accepting when I came back and I started getting sober and doing it was a miracle in itself. That was God. It's just all God, and they could just see it.
They wanted
Yeah.
all along.
They wanted a mother for their grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yep, so when I got my car, I started helping out the Butterfly House. Giving them rides and stuff like that, going to meetings, giving them, like, if you want to go to Walmart, because they could only ride with women. And I didn't even have a cell phone for my first, probably, I would say 9 months of my sobriety. I didn't even have a cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm depending on my ex-husband, who is not very dependable when it comes to like stuff sometimes, because he was still angry with me, and we're not together, so he was still kind of doing his thing with things and substances, and he wasn't always there, but I was there, and I just knew that as long as I didn't get high or drink, I could still be there with my kids, no matter how chaotic our relationship was. And so, I didn't have a cell phone for like 9. All you have to change is everything, and that's one of them for sure. I didn't even put Facebook on my phone for at least 2 years when I got it.
As you're like sharing this stuff, all I can think of is like how committed you were to the process, to like not have a cell phone, to be around somebody who's like still actively using.
Yeah.
To like, okay, you have to do all this stuff, but I'm gonna just do me. Like, to be around that would be really hard, and I probably would have used that as an excuse.
People would tell me, they're like, I don't know how you stay sober.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I didn't use that as an excuse, because I didn't even realize that could be an excuse until later when I started thinking about it. So I don't tell people that I don't know how you stay sober, because that could be like, I'm competitive. I'm like, oh yeah, you don't think I could stay sober? I'm gonna, just to show you, know.
Right.
And I didn't start really sponsoring and having that spiritual awakening until I started doing my steps.
Sure. Yeah.
So AA nowadays isn't really about the steps. Unfortunately, going to meetings and they don't talk a lot about the steps. It's a lot of topic meetings. I enjoy big book meetings. I enjoy step meetings. I enjoy step meetings when you go to step meetings with people who have been seasoned and are there to help other people instead of just complaining about their life. So I went to a retreat in 2018. And that's the spiritual program retreat. It was also Came to Believe spiritual program retreat, same concept, same idea. They used to be one retreat. They are now separate, and that's great. Wonderful people with both. the concept is to take somebody and show them the 12 steps
Okay.
in one weekend. You go through 1 through 8, you go home with a list of 9, you learn how to live with 10, 11, and 12. So up to this point in recovery, I'd heard these things about this 4th step and 5th step. So I had done kind of 1, 2, and 3 with somebody who I asked to be my sponsor, and it kind of was not reliable, which is great. I mean, I've grown a lot over the no's that you hear from women to be sponsors, because I don't know what it is, but there's not a lot of women in our area that are willing to be sponsors.
Yeah. Can you, maybe talk a little bit about that, because you kind of brought that up
Yeah.
at the meeting, and I think it's true just across
Yeah.
the area. I mean, in River Falls, I know it's true. I mean, it's like 3 to 1.
Yeah, I don't think if they just don't think they're adequate enough. I don't understand. You are worthy. You are enough. You have a story. You know, they always said, when can you start sponsoring? As soon as you did the steps and you've had your spiritual awakening through step 12, you start helping others.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people just aren't doing the steps or why. I don't know. And then the ones that are sponsoring women are overloaded.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what our goal is, to carry the message and then live our lives too. So once we get sober, we have all these hours in the day. We get to do all this other stuff too, right? We get to be moms. We get to go back to school and be students. We get to be sisters. We get to be, granddaughters. We get to do those things again. And we also get to show other women how to live.
Yeah.
And that's our goal. Like, that should be our goal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's recovery.
Do you sponsor? Not yet.
We're working on it.
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, we're working on it. Yeah, no, and that's why I like to set women up. So when somebody asks me, "Will you sponsor me?" I'm like, "Well, let's take a minute and talk about that. Let's go have coffee and talk about it. Like, what are you looking for in a sponsor? Have you done the steps? Have you had your spiritual awakening as the result of these steps? Do we need to revisit steps 4 and 5?
Right.
And so that you are equipped to help the next person. Because my goal is to go through the steps with you, and it doesn't solve all your problems, but it helps you cope with your problems, and it helps you to share your story with other people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I personally, speaking from my experience, I didn't find success in recovery until I read the book. I've read it like 5 times since I've been sober now. I mean, I go Tuesday nights, we have a men's meeting, we go through the book, and anyway, so it wasn't until I worked the steps, read the book, jumped into the program, and oddly enough, I'd been coming to AA for so long.
Yeah.
And I never even, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do those steps. Like, I'm not going to, follow through with what they say you got to do to be successful.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you. Because it's like when you go in there and you hear the things like one's too many, 1,000's never enough, and it hits you and you're like, yes, but I want a solution for that.
Yeah.
Or you go to these big book meetings and they talk about the problem, the phenomena of the craving. Once you have one, you don't know when you're going to stop.
Yep.
It's all bets are off.
Yep.
But then when you also read like the promises, like in the big book, I think it's like either page 84 or 89. It's like, nothing ensures immunity from drinking as extensive work with other alcoholics.
Yep.
This just tells me that if I work with you, that is going to ensure my immunity from drinking. And even in like NA too, it's like one addict helping another is what works. It's never been proven. In Dr. Silkworth, in the beginning of the big book, says it.
Yeah.
Like, nothing has been able to permanently eradicate this problem, but help with other people, other alcoholics. And so those things I don't think are shared enough in meetings and things. And I get it. It's just like people just learn and they learn and it evolves. But the promises and the solutions are in the steps.
Yep. Yeah, when I came into the program, I was with a bunch of guys that were super well versed, and my eyes were glazing over, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I prefer to just like read the 24 hours a day and then talk about how it made me feel, and then go around, and, blah 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 blah, and they would always joke about that.
Yeah.
And that's because that's not the deal.
Right.
That's not the deal.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, some of the things that you read in some of those books, though, do contradict the big book.
Yeah.
They do. And you don't notice those things till after you've done the steps and you read the big book. Read that book. Like the first 164 pages, go to the book studies. There's book studies all over. I will tell you. Contact me. I will tell you where to go. I will read the book with you.
Yeah.
Like, just to understand those pages. It was, written in like 1930s. But the people who wrote that book had an average sobriety of 18 months.
Yep.
There's another book. It's called Back to the Basics. It describes in there They used to put it in the newspaper, seeking people to like help people at like the mental wards and the sick hospitals and stuff like that, because they would take people, they would do the steps with them quick and then take them back to to those hospitals and to help people go through them. And that's how it worked in early sobriety.
Yeah.
I feel, sometimes I am a little bit jealous that I was 18 or 16 months sober when I got my steps in. I wish it was sooner.
Yeah. There's a guy, he comes to a lot of the meetings that I go to, and he talks about it took him 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was white knuckling it for 15 years. He was sober, but didn't do any of the work.
Yeah.
Got called out. It's like, who's your sponsor? And then it's like, so.
No, my grandpa used to do that when he would say, you need to go to AA, every time I'd get in trouble or I knew I was in trouble. And I was like, I'm grandpa. He's like, who's your sponsor? What step you're on? Okay, I got to go. He knew I was, because he'd been doing AA he's 49 years now. And now I can finally tell him, like, I'm doing it, and he'll tell me, here's my 92-year-old grandpa. He says, you know what happens to people who don't go to meetings? People who don't go to meetings find out what happens to people who don't go to meetings. And meeting makers make it. When he said that and I heard that in AA, I was like, he comes out every year, I get my medallion. He gave me my 9-month medallion, actually. So, yeah, it's a special relationship there because it's the old timers.
Yeah.
And that's when it really worked,
So, a couple things. I wanna ask you. Okay, so what do you wish someone had told you in early recovery?
So I was pondering this a little bit because I was like, man, I don't know if anything that somebody would have told me I would have listened to.
Right.
Because you were listening to all this advice and these suggestions from people, and even in early recovery, so I didn't have a relationship. Of course, I lived with my ex-husband, but I didn't have a relationship for 3 years, except for that relationship living with my ex-husband. Because people said don't do it for a year and all this advice and stuff like that. I went for 3 years. So for people who don't think that they, who fall in love right away at 6 months or 9 months, I feel like that's a downfall for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm very blessed for that. And so I did listen to some things when I was early in sobriety about that stuff. But I think that one of the things I missed out on the most is having a person who had kids the same age as mine were when they got sober. And I think that now, because I'm relating with a gal that I'm sponsoring, and she has kids that are about my kids' age, and then she's got a couple younger that were my kids' age when I got sober. And I think that if I would have seen the way I reacted to life when I was first sober, and the things that, the characteristics of myself that I don't really appreciate all the time, like the social anxiety or anxiety in general, or the way I react, my anger issues, things like that. And then watching my kids now have those issues, I wish that I would have had somebody that was closer to me, maybe somebody, a sponsor, or a woman in my life that spent more time with me, because I didn't have that. I spend a lot of time with the women I sponsor now as friends, on friends basis. I wish I would have had that, because I could have seen, they could have maybe given me feedback in my life, and I could have been more honest with them about my anger issues and the way that I was handling the things. Because yes, I wasn't a very toxic, and I used the word toxic so many times, but my synonym bank is broken right now. So
It's okay.
I lived in a toxic environment when I was getting sober.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And so I was home with my kids a lot. Besides, I was in meetings, and I did talk about it in meetings. I was like, I know you guys could tell I'm the youngest in sobriety here because word vomit, right?
Yeah.
But it was that comfortable for me. But I wish I would have had somebody that said, hey, why don't you look at your anger issues, or can you take a moment? And God is in the pause. I've heard that a lot. And it is an 11th step and stuff too, but just actually having somebody to walk with me during those times too and actually see what's going on, I wish I would have had that. So that's what I try to give people in my life today. Unfortunately, their dad passed away. 10/10/2020. He just, his body couldn't handle it anymore. They called it a significant cardiac event, cited drugs, meth use, and smoking and things like that as the contributing factors. It's a very unfortunate situation. I don't wish that on anybody. He was in the rooms, he had the messages, but he never took the message in. The incapability of being honest with yourself, I think, is a big one right away in how it works. I don't know why I got the message. I thank God every day that I've had this spiritual experience that I've had and the spiritual awakening in my life, that I can carry the message on to other people, and I'm alive to do that.
Yeah.
So being early in sobriety, I quit smoking cigarettes right away too. Everybody said that's not a good idea.
I think I read somewhere that like your chances of staying sober like significantly increase though if you stop smoking.
I would believe that. I would totally believe that.
It's like a whatever.
Trigger.
Well, a trigger, but it's a my mind isn't working. Like a compulsive behavior. It's like a repetitive thing that you do. You know what I mean? Like when you're driving, you gotta smoke, or when you're.
So that was the hardest.
All those things, it's the same pathway in your brain that. So.
Yeah, and I did, but I also know women are like, well, I just can't quit smoking right now, and that's okay too. But
I vape,
yeah.
so I'm.
No, I'm glad I didn't do that because I like everything too much.
Yeah.
So when I quit, I had to quit it all. I tried going down to like 1 cigarette a day, it didn't work.
Yeah.
But I was done, and the entire compulsion was removed from me.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, if God has done all these things for me and wants me to be a healthy person, what am I to throw this body away? You know, but I had gained a lot of weight too in that time of quitting smoking and obviously getting off of meth and stuff like that. But so being so from going from a drug addicted mother for how many years to being a single mom all of a sudden at 4 years sober. It was a crazy experience,
Yeah.
And my kids were just starting to get into their activities and stuff like that, and then COVID was going on, and.
So you bring up an interesting point just about kind of that self-love and early recovery and kind of, you had mentioned just how you see yourself, right? And can you talk a little bit about how you, I don't know, were able to navigate some of that stuff?
Yeah, so I always wanted love and acceptance from people. And I never really understand what people would say, well, you have to be comfortable alone before you can be looking for a relationship and being comfortable with other people and things like that. And I never really understood what they meant until the last few years. I really understand that. I've always been seeking those male companionships for things. Sure. And women, having the sense of love from women in the program has probably really increased my self-love of myself. Yeah. Is because I'm with women. I really... will tell people I promote the women's meetings and the men's meetings. Yeah. Because that's when you really learn more about yourself through other people. Because we really are the same. Yeah. Biologically and stuff, and the way our brains work and the things that we've done, and especially being mothers. And even if you're not a mom, you can sometimes relate to, how you were raised as a child too. But really learning about yourself and taking that time, even if you don't have time because you have kids, is important. I read a lot of books. Brene Brown, and when I was early in sobriety, people would suggest these books and I would just buy them. And I was going through my book cabinet the other day and I was kind of separating them from ones I've read or ones that I won't be reading soon to ones that I will be, I plan on picking up again. And I think that's really what propelled me is the self-help books and the meditating, learning from other people. I tried some yoga and stuff like that and listening to other people, and telling yourself every day that you are worthy. We all have these body images, right, of ourselves.
Right.
If we're not a size 2 or a size 4, it's like we're overweight, and I've never been that small, except for when I was using, I was smaller, right? But I was super unhealthy. So just coming into the program and just having that acceptance from other women and being lifted up by other women instead of them, going behind your back and, doing whatever that we do to each other.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me is to learn to love myself through other people.
Yeah, I think we get to see like healthy people in the program and people that are able to. We're all still alcoholics and but you get to see like how I always say like you gotta keep showing up, and then you start to build those relationships and then see how people navigate their own issues and stuff. I don't know. It's been super helpful for me because I didn't know how to act. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to be an adult or relate to other people if it wasn't, relating to drugs or alcohol. So.
Well, and one thing I do want to say too is when you come into the program, it's principles before personalities, and I didn't understand that at first. Right. Yeah. And I still have sometimes a hard time with that. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you what, when I walk into a room, I love everybody, no matter where they came from or what they've done, because if you were to judge me based on what I've done, I would not be here. and I would not be loved because I've done some really horrible things to people.
Yeah.
And so for people to be like, well, so-and-so did that or so-and-so did that, it's like, I didn't, and I still am working on that. It's been, even the last couple years, I've grown immensely in that area because I have made mistakes in recovery. We all do. We are still human. I am not perfect. I am far from it. I still say things I don't mean. I still do things I shouldn't do. But the last couple years has been a big impact on me. I think it's my kids are getting older and stuff like that, and I'm just learning a lot more to love everybody.
So, I know you had mentioned you didn't want to say that everything is great.
Right. Yeah.
So I do want to say, like, what keeps you grounded on hard days or difficult days? And then we'll close it out after that.
Yeah, I would say that the fellowship. The fellowship is really what keeps me grounded, for sure. Every day I have people in my life that I talk to.
Yeah.
In recovery. I have people that are not in recovery that I talk to every day too. My supervisor's not in recovery and she loves me. When I first met her after my whole newspaper incident, she said, I forgive you for anything you've ever done. And she just knew from that we would be friends. And we've been friends for probably 8 years now.
Yeah.
And she's not in recovery. And she doesn't understand how people just can't stop at one. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's just talking to the people when I'm having hard days, keeping myself knowing like, I'm a scheduled person. I'm a very routine person.
Type A.
That works for me.
Yeah.
I have my calendar is full.
Yeah.
I like to know what's going on. One thing that doesn't work for me is when something cancels on me or something changes. So I'm still learning how to ground myself in those areas because I get totally thrown off when like something is going to change, or like even if I'm going to go to the store and all of a sudden we change plans on what's for dinner and now I'm like at the store and I'm like, why did you do that to me?
Yeah.
Now I don't know what I'm shopping for. But I think that just having the people in recovery and not holding back. So I'm sponsoring. I have three women that I work, I would say fairly close with right now. One of them has been sober for 6 years. She's was in the Butterfly House. She's been sober for 6 years. She comes up here every couple weeks and visits me. I love her to death. She's amazing. I don't have to, but she's still, hey, sponsor, I need to talk to you, but also friend, right? There's a gal I'm sponsoring now. She's about 9 months sober, and she's doing phenomenal. We did her steps. She's got kids about the same age as mine. I talked to her. She's one of them people where you have to tell people they're not a burden to you. They are a blessing. So at first, she's like, I didn't want to text you, so I'll call her. I'll text her. I'm not going to chase you down, but I'm going to continue to, she says, if I don't reply, please keep getting a hold of me. And then, and then I have another gal who's just struggling with sobriety, and she knows she wants to stay sober, but it's like trying to reinforce those why do you want to be sober type of things. Right. But I'm still gonna love you forever because you're still trying, and I just tell them like my time is very valuable, but I love these people and I'm gonna help you wherever I can. My phone is always on, and so being able to help other people and then also talk about my things. I have a loving, supportive boyfriend at home who is I don't know where he came from or whatever, but he has helped me immensely too, is like to slow down, like, hey, can we chill out for a second before you say that? Or, we don't argue or yell, and so that's different for me.
Yeah.
My kids, I just want to give my little plug for my kids because they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing human beings. My son is going to be 20 in May. He's in his second year of college. He's going to finish his 4-year degree this year.
That's awesome.
In political science, because he brought some credits with him from high school. Like, my life is not perfect. I have to do those things. I don't, sit and dwell on them. I just try to fix them, but maybe I'm the fixer, and that's, but I also have a 17-year-old who is amazing. She's an all-star athlete. She's been there. I've been there. I'm her mom. I'm her mother. She loves me. Thank goodness I have the love for my kids today. She went to state last year for track. She's on a club volleyball team year-round. She plays volleyball for school. She's breaking records. She's a basketball player. Everything she does, she's good at. She's a kinship mentor. She's on student council. It doesn't just stop in the gym. She's a lifeguard she works.
Wow.
She wants to get that bread, and I keep telling her it's on the counter in the kitchen, and she's like, not that bread, right? You're so cringy, Mom. It's like 6, 7. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
She's just great. And my family's amazing too. I have an older brother who I've got his love back. We went from, he told me to never, basically I never ever want to see you again, stay away from our mother, to bring me up to Red Lake when we were able to bury her. My family's from the Red Lake Indian Reservation. So we were able to have a ceremony for her up there when we did that. My aunts and uncles trust me in their houses. Again, my grandpa calls to check in on me. You know, it's the things. I get invited to family events.
Yeah.
Like, I love this stuff. Even with the, you know, the culture that comes with having a lot of family, I love my family. And I'm grateful to be back with them because for a long time they thought that I was going to be gone. You know, you never know.
Yeah.
And we've lost people young. My parents are both gone, 53 and 54 years old.
Yeah.
And my cousin just passed away yesterday. He was 55. So we lose, you know, you lose those people and they're glad that I'm back. And my aunt tells me all the time, my mom lived with her a lot in her mental illness. And my aunt just like, I'm so glad you're back. And so I love those things. I look forward to those things in my life because that's where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And I do make mistakes. You know, I do have to apologize. I recently had to apologize to a fellow AA person, and I had it right on, and I went up and I said, hey man, I'm really sorry for the things that I've said to you. It was humbling for me because I don't always like to admit that I'm wrong, but I was wrong in that instance. And you know, when I said it too, is I knew I was wrong, and I felt that, and I let it sit for longer than I needed to let it sit. So we get that conscience back.
Yeah.
And then God leads us too. He gives us those little pokes. For me, he gives me nudges.
For sure.
And I know when I'm getting nudged to do the right thing.
Yeah. It's awesome. I appreciate you sharing all of that. I mean, to see kind of where you were and then where you're at now in your recovery and how you're able to show up for other people, it's pretty inspiring. And, you know, I think that it's really, maybe not, but it's hard for people to share some of that stuff. And then, you know, it's one thing to stand in front of an AA room, but to blast it all over the internet.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty, it's telling as to where you're at. You know what I mean? And just your willingness to help other people, because that's really what it's about, is like sharing. Hopefully, like one little nugget will hit somebody, and then, you know, they're like, oh, you know, maybe I can change, or maybe there's something better for me out there. And so.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing too, is because one thing we didn't touch on was the stigma around the 12-step meetings, misconceptions, right?
Yeah.
I do want to say that because I know not everybody that listens, my family's going to listen, and they're not 12-step goers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they know what they are. But the 12 steps aren't just for people who have addictions to substances and alcohol. And it's not for the people who are in the brown paper bag sitting outside the ground, you know, station in Minneapolis, right? 12 steps can be in a lot of different forms. You can be addicted to food. 12 steps for food. I have been a member of Overeaters Anonymous. I've lost 100 pounds now, and that's what really propelled me into the weight loss, is the Overeaters Anonymous, because that's a whole nother addiction, right? Gamblers Anonymous. You know, gambling is a thing. There's people who don't have any issues, but they go to the casino every time they get a check and they lose it all. You know, or their credit cards are maxed out. Average credit card debt of people in America is like $14,000. That's crazy to me, you know? Also people can be addicted to people and their feelings and the drama. And those things, the 12-step groups help with all that. The Codependence Anonymous, you know, things like that. There's Sex and Love Anonymous too. I mean, there's all these different fellowships that you can find at your fingertips on Zoom and all that stuff. And if you don't like the first meeting that you go to, try another one.
Yeah.
So people say, well, I didn't like it. Well, try another one. We're so blessed to have a variety of it. And that was another thing, is like the hope that I have for people is the amount of recovery and events that we have available to us all over the place, all the time. There's no excuse to go to a meeting and say, I don't like it or it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I get that AA is not the only way to get sober. I understand that too. I have friends that were junkie like me who didn't use AA to get sober.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them too, and I like when they share their story because it gives everybody hope. You don't have to be in AA just to get sober.